Welcome into the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new EP from Jaffe, entitled Heroes. He released that on April 8th. This is Jaffe's debut studio project, and I'm thrilled to be able to talk about it. Also very excited for the direction that his career has taken in the last couple of years, signing with Wayfarer Music Group and releasing this project with them. Shout out to Wayfarer as well while we're getting this thing started. If you guys are not familiar with them, I'll attach a link to their website with this album review, and I'd encourage all of you to check them out. They started off about 20 years ago up in the Pacific Northwest, a small independent label focused on ambient, electronic, and cinematic music. And in recent years, they have expanded that operation, which now includes multiple divisions. The most important thing about Wayfarer, though, is that they remain committed to being independent. They are a passionate collective of musicians that includes the likes of Richard Thiessen, Ambient Solstice, and Byron Metcalf, just to name a few. And they are dedicated to subverting the traditional ways in which the music industry has operated for decades now. And I applaud them for that. Jaffe is a fascinating guy, and signing with Wayfarer just makes absolute sense when you consider what he's trying to create with his music. I had the privilege to meet him about 5 years ago. We worked together for a brief stint of time, and I'm thankful that a friendship evolved out of that time together. We've had some really good conversations in the last 5 years, and many of those have focused around music. I was really intrigued too when he finally mentioned that he's been a musician for 30 plus years as well as a producer. And he's been kind enough to hand me off tracks over the years as well. And I've really enjoyed them. Jaffe is intelligent, insightful, and very resilient. And I don't bring all of this up just to flatter him. I think it's important to mention because it informs the experience that he creates for his listener. And I think it's one of the things that sets him apart, that makes him special, and makes total sense that he is a part of Wayfarer Group now with all of these other phenomenal musicians. Ambient music is something that is incredibly difficult to do. It's kind of in a genre class of its own. There's so many conventions that you're not relying on with what you're doing stylistically, and I would say the hook is the biggest one. You can go all the way back to classical symphonies. Beethoven's Fifth is the perfect example. Like bum, 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 bum. You have this melody that instantly draws you in. And while in popular music now, most hooks really rely on a lyrical element, I'd argue, you still have some great songs that incorporate wonderful instrumental hooks. I think of Dave Brubeck Quartet in Take 5. And moving into rock and roll with Smoke on the Water. That is a great riff from Deep Purple. Or even think of the saxophone element from Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty. Most recently, I think of that synth hook in Blinding Lights from The Weeknd. It's absolutely phenomenal. I even as overplayed as that song is, I still love hearing it anytime it comes on. But ambient electronic music versus so many other genres that I think the goal of that music is to capture you and to draw you into a story or some type of theme that the artist is trying to convey or impart is different in that you're basically kind of like handing an author a few words and then telling them to write a story. Or you're just giving a painter a few different colors and then telling them to, work on a canvas with those. I feel ambient electronic music, or you can call this experimental, you can call it intelligent dance music, is one of the labels that you'll see on the Apple streaming service when you pull this project up. But it's about creating an immersive experience. It is about allowing the listener to take this foundation that you've given them and to have their own introspective moment with it. And I think that Jaffe, when it comes to the compositions, when it comes to the nuance, really excels in taking his listener into different moments at the right place. I love the different instrumental elements that come into play throughout all four of these tracks. And they are in some way still engaging. They do capture you. There's moments too where the music might drop and it almost kind of draws you out and then draws you back in. It's almost kind of like this out-of-body experience that he creates with his music. And I've really enjoyed it for that reason. Want to mention the production value on this project. It is outstanding. I did mention that aside from writing music, he does have experience in that arena. And I think it's important with this style of music. I think too often now, with so many artists working with different computer programs, it's really easy to have oversight of that production value. And music can just sound so fake, so mechanical, so electronic. And I don't mean electronic in the good way. And Jaffe also excels in making sure that the music, despite being something that is, not natural, still feels natural. It still feels ethereal. This is a record that is slightly different too. It's got a few vocal elements to it. The last track, Heroes, a David Bowie cover. I love that he did that. But also 2 other tracks that feature Alan Watts, who is a very interesting guy. I'm only familiar with him as an individual that introduced the beat generation to America, a handful of individuals anyway. But he's also very well known for being a philosophical entertainer, for taking Eastern philosophies and I think making them more digestible for a Western audience. But there's something nebulous about when his voice creeps into these compositions, and it creates this extra depth, this extra bit of experience that does kind of steer what it is that you're listening to a certain degree. But I think that it's incorporated so well that you're still allowed to go into a world of your own, or in this case, a galaxy or a dimension of your own. When I listen to Heroes, especially for the first time, it feels like an origin story. It could be the origin of the individual, and it could be the origin of the universe, especially with the first track opening up with 256 watts. That does feature Alan Watts. He opens up with a vocal from, it's an excerpt from Individual and the World. I believe it's the very beginning of that talk. And then the beat hits, and it is enigmatic, it's intense, and it really has that feeling of a beginning, of the chaos that eventually mellows into creation. And I love that about it. Talking about that vocal opening up, you get the synth element really has this sci-fi driven flavor to it. And so, I mean, that's definitely another thing that took me out to space personally when I first pressed play on this thing, excuse me. But I love the way that the synths, it just feels like they're kind of like swimming in and out. And they work around that spoken word element incredibly well. Creates this mystifying mood that's equally dark and ambient. And I love the fluttering hi-hat. That's one of my favorite little nuances to this song, talking about that attention to detail. It's really a fine component of this track. The beat is going to drop to focus on that spoken word element from Alan for a moment, and talking about that, the moments in some of these tracks that like pull you back to reality, and then the beat drops again and it's like whoosh. It's almost kind of like an out of body experience for a little bit. And I really love the way that that final spoken word element is going to usher in the coda of the track to finish this thing off. Talking about the evolution of the self or the universe, you have that chaotic moment of beginning. And then your second track is Happiness. And Happiness is going to take us in a completely different direction. My one constructive bit of criticism for this EP is that it would have maybe been nice to have a fifth song, maybe something that bridges the gap between 256 watts and Happiness a little more. But I still think that what's happening here works. And I love the slow, murky fade in and the light synths that play intermittently with this subtle twinkle. This is a song that is very gentle, very peaceful. And I feel this is that moment where the chaos comes together. And whether it's the universe forming and being this beautiful, entity that it is, infinite entity is what I meant to say there, or whether it is the individual self. I think of the process of adolescence, of growing up and discovering who you are. And it is one of the marvelous things about getting older, is being able to put those pieces together and to realize yourself, to realize what it is you're all about. And I think that that is one of the fundamental cores to finding happiness in life. This song has got this resonant synth that it kind of sounds like a mouth harp a little bit. The production's really unique on it, and it creates a bit of dissonance. I think that this is an important element to this track because in finding happiness, it doesn't mean that we will be able to evade any type of, you know, just bad thing that happens to us in life. You know, there's always going to be evil forces out there. There's always going to be unfortunate circumstances that we encounter in life. And a big part of being happy is developing ways to cope with those situations, to learn from them, and to be able to move forward into the future with with the mindset that you will be okay, and that more than likely these types of things will occur again, unfortunately, but it just is a part of life. So I really like that dynamic there. You get this dancing vibraphone like synth that works in as well, and it just plays with space in a really marvelous fashion. Big drone like synth enters around 225. And it really enhances the ethereal effect of this track. I really just enjoy the slow build that this thing takes. Real nice slow burner, and it becomes more rapturous with every second that passes. The strings continue to build the mood. I love the string production when you're getting that element on this EP. It's one of the things that I gotta highlight, because I think from a production standpoint, Jaffy did a really excellent job with those. 264 watts is your third track. You get this heavy trotting percussion to open, sparse vibrating synths that sound almost like woodwind instruments. Alan Watts enters with a fluttering synth that plays with big gaps of space. I really like the balance of his voice with that synth element. Droning synth is going to build behind this beat, and it catches you off guard at about 120 with this wavy synth. I really like when that enters into the song. Music seeds to capture a dark mood with only just the beat of the song. And it takes a bit of an ominous turn at this point. I really like the kind of different like variation that this song adopts. It stays very similar melodically, but it almost over the course of the track feels like it's kind of taking a darker turn. And I would argue that at this point in the EP, this is when we're experiencing the individual take on more of an existential perspective. Or, maybe this is, if you want to get real sci-fi, maybe this is the chaos that unfolds when a star explodes, or, whatever your interpretation might be. I definitely went more to the individual with this track, though. I feel that once we find happiness, that is the cornerstone for being able to focus more on the world around you and wanting to have an impact and dealing with kind of the utter absurdity of life. Why are we here? What is the meaning of this? And trying to cultivate a lifestyle and to cultivate principles that make you a productive part of all that make you a constructive element to the world that you were lucky to be a part of. And then this thing closes with Heroes. I feel like Heroes is the track that is the future. This is the unknown part of our lives, of where the universe has yet to go as it continues to just expand into the infinite unknown. It's just a beautiful rendition of one of my favorite songs. I love the sparse staccato like vibraphone that it's a vibraphone like synth that opens up this thing, and then you get the vocal from Jaffy. You actually get a really nice harmony from Jaffy. Both vocals are his. I was talking to him the other day, and I was like, man, who's the woman that you got to sing with you on this? And he's like, oh man, it's just me. I just recorded it and tweaked the production to make it sound like that. But talking about that production value and talking about things sounding so natural, I think he's absolutely crushing it with the vocal element to this song. And this is another one that just a nice slow build. And I love the delicate cymbal per element of this track. Really just nice percussive element, keeping it simple, keeping it minimal, but having a great impact. And then the strings as well. There's almost just this like slow staccato quality to those. They are gorgeous. Again, I'm going to use the word rapturous because I listened to this song. This is a song that, I mean, for a while after Bowie passed away, for those of you who are familiar with the channel, you know that he's one of my favorites. He meant a lot to me. while he was still here on Earth making music. He still means a lot to me. And it's a song that I couldn't listen to for a while without tearing up. And this rendition stirred me to that point. Like, I really found this so joyful and just so peaceful, and a marvelous way to close out a project. I think, Jaffe, you've done a really fine job with this project, and I'm going to give this thing a 7.8 out of 10. And if you ever press this thing on vinyl, I'm going to vinyl please it preemptively, but hopefully down the road we can get some wax, because I think experiencing this thing, two sides, track 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, it would be a great cut and a lot of fun. So I hope you all enjoy this project. Hope you find this review helpful as well. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2025, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.